Hearts for our next storyteller, Tracy, everybody.
Half a lifetime ago, I worked on a trading desk in New York. It was my tribe, which was weird because I'm an English major, but I loved it. And I identified with my tribe, and because of that, I have carried tremendous guilt and shame that I was on vacation September 11th. In fact, I was on one of the last planes to fly on September 11th. I was on vacation, so my husband at the time, my husband, we were a little tipsy, and we were not prone to turning on the news, especially on vacation. So we flew all the way to Paris on September 11th, completely unaware of what had happened. Now, on the evening of September 11th, the worst thing that had happened to me at that very moment was that, for reasons we didn't understand, our hotel room was still occupied, and so they shoved us into this little tiny attic, kind of like the guy in Ratatouille when he lived in that little attic with it, like that, and we couldn't even really stand upright. And so, of course, because I was mad, because that was a thing to be upset about, he did a great job. He threw open the window, he lit a cigarette, and in a very strange accent, he leaned out over the city of Paris and he said, "La help, la help. I am trapped in an impossibly small room with a very, very angry woman. Please help me." And it is still one of my fondest memories of my husband. So we were a little tipsy, and we went to sleep because we couldn't really stand up and do anything anyway. So we went back to sleep. And on the morning of September 12th, he went to go get me coffee, and he came back empty-handed. And he said, "I have some really bad news I have to tell you." And in that moment, I always think about that. In that moment, I was up for this amazing job. And in that moment, I was like, damn it. I didn't get the job, because in that moment, that was the worst thing that had happened to me, right? That definitely trumped the ridiculous tiny hotel room. And so then we are stuck not in our country, but in a foreign country, trying to process everything. And he had been in my life almost 20 years, and I had never seen him cry. And all of a sudden, I have on my hands this person that is beyond grief, because one of his closest friends, and maybe even a little bit of a father figure, a mentor to him, was a man named Jack. And Jack had planned the conference on the 106th floor. And so surely Jack was dead. And even by September 12th, the next day, it was clear that people from the 106th floor would not have survived. And out of nowhere, almost like a white-hot, cold lightning bolt, I am struck with the conviction that Jack is alive. And I can even describe what he looks like, and I say he's very sad, but he's alive. And of course we argue about it because it was the last year of our marriage, and it's what you do. It's like a little hobby. And so we argued. And then we fly home to our devastated city and industry. My husband was a bond guy. I was a stock gal. We were impacted across. We were hedged in our grieving. And I felt as though we were then kind of dropped onto this weird cruise ship where you would wake up and you'd have your coffee, and then you'd read the Portraits in Grief, and then somebody would come around with like a clipboard, and they would say, "We have 7 funerals today. Which ones do you want to go to?" So we did the circuit, right? You drive around, let's do 2 bond funerals and then a stock funeral. I mean, it's just like, how do you do it? I don't know. It's gross. And you did it. And I said, that's it. I don't want to ever do this again. I didn't want the grief. A therapist is like, you should let it out. And I was like, no. This will stay in the rest of my life, because I didn't want it to come out, because where would I put it? Also, I still felt very strongly that Jack was still alive. Now, in case you're wondering, I had never, up until that point, listened to my intuition. I just wouldn't whenever my intuition or my spidey sense tingled, I'd be like, shh, I'm not doing that, because my intuition was getting in the way of my well thought out plans. So my husband drags me to a second funeral, and it's a big one. It's a Catholic mass. It's 1,500 people, standing room only. And I'm sitting in the pew thinking about how very much I don't want to be part of this, because this sadness is going to stain my soul, and I can't do this. And then behind me, you catch all these weird snippets, like that there weren't enough caterers, right? Because 2,977 people all died in the same city on the same day. And so weirdly, there weren't enough florists, there weren't enough caterers. And then people started talking about who didn't have health insurance and who did have, and it was horrible. And I just want out, I want to flee, I want to scream, I want to just be not here. And I look in the aisle, I was looking for an escape route, and there is Jack. I know. And I look at my husband, and he looks at me. And we are astonished because Jack is alive. And so I don't even care about etiquette at this point. I've never even met the man, but I run pell-mell down the church aisle, and I throw my arms around this man, and I'm sobbing, like not pretty, but like ugly sobbing. And I say, oh my God, and I hold him away from him, and I said, oh my God, you're alive. I mean, it was such a thing of beauty that he really, truly was alive. And then he looked really startled, and I thought, oh crap, I've hugged the wrong guy. I said, wait, you're Jack, right? And he smiled. And he said, yes, you must be Tracy. So the lovely epilogue to all of this is that I took that horrible era of my life and all of the grief that felt like this gritty quicksand with which you're sinking in, and then there are these angry bees around your head and you can't escape it. And I took all of that, and I decided I was going to do a U-turn, and I was going to listen to my intuition, because it's very powerful and apparently also highly accurate. And so I listened to my intuition. I divorced my husband, even though he'd been in my life for half of it. And then I drove to Seattle. I drove west from New York to Seattle. You can't get any further away from anything, because my spidey sense really wanted to live in Seattle. That's it. That's all I knew. And then I was dragged to a singles party that I really didn't want to go to, but I was trying to say yes to things. And you know what happened is I met my husband. It's exciting. My second husband, my final husband. Because really, what a thing of beauty, if you've ever done that, if you've ever blown up a love, to get a second bite at the apple again is such a thing of beauty. So I took that, and I realized amidst all of that horrible chaos that I didn't want to face, that at the end of the day, the true beauty in life is just listening to that inner wisdom.